Welcome to the second edition of World Cashew Convention. I am Chandana Shiv and I am from cashewinfo.com. Today with me I have Mr. Giridhar Prabhu, who is from Achal Industries, who is the proprietor of Achal Industries. Welcome to WCC, sir. Sir, standardization of RCN. What do you think is the way forward today?
Raw cashew nuts are produce from a tree, and therefore it is something that is not easily governable. For example, that if you have annual crops like wheat or groundnut or 3-month crops, so once it comes from a tree, it's a produce that has its characteristics.
Yes.
So the peculiarity of cashew, and that is why it is exciting, is that it is a kidney shape.
Right, sir.
And you can't replicate, there's no other probably equivalent like you have kidney beans. The problem with, or the nature's protection for raw cashew has been that it has a thick outer shell and which has some phenolic compound. So when it is covered by that, it is meant to protect the meat of the kernel. Nature made it.
Yes, sir.
So when we get it harvested and then it comes to the factory, the standards evolved have been what is the count per kilo,
Right, sir.
what is the yield of the kernel,
Yeah.
that too measured at that point, and the moisture content.
Right.
The other specifications are commercial, that it should not have stones or
Yeah.
so we have no acknowledged and developed standards for raw cashews, because in the definition of standard there must be something minimum.
Right, sir.
It should not be below that. And the definition of specifications are that it should be better than a standard.
Right.
So they need to be evolved between the producer trader and trader to manufacturer, and we have no written standards.
Right.
And it requires major initiative between us. As of now it is very informal, so I am pleading before the WCC and future participants, let us all get together, because it is something between buyers and sellers. It means what it has impact on manufacturer and later, therefore we have to start with a draft.
Yes, sir.
And the major constraint that we have is moisture content.
Right.
The moisture content measurability, though done in a laboratory, it still requires a lot of studies on what is acceptable and what otherwise can be made acceptable. So this is where I feel that we should start from the physical aspects. It doesn't have much of chemical aspects, because it's something that normally a product, whatever it has, that doesn't have any possible negatives, but we have issues before, and then we have the characteristics.
Right.
And these characteristics should not be vague. They should be not subjective. My characteristic and your characteristic is. So sometimes we should not get into that the opinion on quality or as a flavor on visual. It can lead to an issue where the trust level of the sellers. Today everybody here is searching for value.
Right.
And every time I said from raw nut value, how will I turn it to kernel is very difficult to describe.
Right.
But at least let us start that if there is a world standard and if there is an adherence to it, then definitely when cashew world trade expands, you will have a reference.
Right, sir.
Today we have only references that have evolved as between trade.
Right.
So the farmer doesn't know the standard, and farmer today is small. So on his behalf, on the behalf of the produce, we should develop a world standard.
Great, sir. Also, sir, they say that by 2026, our production should be increased by 2 million tons. Can you just show us the roadmap and assist us like that?
India was holding about 99% of the world trade in manufacture.
Right.
That was 60s. But it was that 50% of that came from East Africa that is Tanzania and Mozambique in the 60s and 70s, we were almost, we call as dominant, not a monopoly per se. So this trade has evolved to saying that it should be an Indian produce. That we have always said when we said to the fora, that is to anybody, India was the largest producer of RCM.
Yes.
It was the largest importer of RCM, largest manufacturer of RCM, largest exporter of RCM, and the second largest consumer of kernels.
Yes, sir.
Today, due to the world growth, Vietnam's engine, I would say, I have to compliment the Vietnamese for their industriousness,
Yes, sir.
for their ability to convert faster, and they have evolved something very great in the conversion processes. But still, we have to address in India that domestic production must grow.
Yes, sir.
There is potential.
Yes, sir.
So how do we go about this has been converted into a document. We did a vision in 2006 called how to make an objective target. So 2 million tons is not a great figure for India considering its geographical commercial advantage. But bear in mind that raw cashew can be grown only in tropical.
Right, sir.
So even if a Punjab farmer or a Bihar farmer is good, they cannot grow raw cashew. It has to be grown 23 degrees and below, which means the southern 7 states
Yes,
and Orissa. Therefore, the 2 million ton has to come from an objective area of 1 million hectares. And then there has to be horticulture. It cannot be coming as wild origin.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, unless we give an objective figure and its meaning, we can't convince policy, we cannot convince state government, or rather they are convinced, but there is still a lot of gaps which the conference must give out, that should we reach this target is marketable. So we are there. If
Yes.
the world says they want more kernels, so why not we do it? We should not have been having any issues that even if West Africa grows another 40%, we will welcome. We are ready. Only Indian production increase will give the value to the Indian industry, obviously, but to the Indian farmer as well. Why not?
Yes, sir.
So giving an objective target has some issues because historically Kerala was the biggest producer, but since Kerala took away the rubber cashews to plant rubber, the topography of rubber is different from the plains.
Right, sir.
Therefore, the advocacy that I am personally making is that the raw cashew can migrate to the plains. Why not outside Bangalore? Why not outside Kolar, Dharmapuri or Mysore? I am giving because
Yes.
you are based in Bangalore per se.
Yes,
But
sir.
I have got other regions also to say there are backward areas in India and there is wasteland.
Right, sir.
Wasteland is in the possession of forest department, wasteland is in the possession of private. Now how do you make this as objective? How do you convince the farmer?
Right.
So what we need is that 100,000 rupees per metric ton is a good value for the farmer to cultivate in
Yes.
trees.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And we couldn't do this forcefully when the rate was 50 rupees a kg.
Yes, sir.
Today it's 100 rupees, so therefore I feel the goal is nearer. Now it's a matter of convergence of technology, convergence of young people like you or somebody who has to have the passion to look 25 years ahead,
Yes, sir.
and that means investment.
Right.
But there is no great investment required for cashew, unlike rubber or arecanut or coconut. It's only attention, and that's why through this media or through any electronic or social media, we should project that cashew is a profitable and also sustainable crop.
Right.
That is the idea behind the 2 million ton target.
Uh-huh.
But should we achieve 2 million tons, the total output that we can get out of it is going to be 500,000 tons, which means the imbalance that India has of its growing consumption. Economically, it will be sustainable in India than in any other country.
Yes.
The Indian price level is always 30% higher than world prices, so why not? But you should also bear in mind the Indian current scenario.
Yes.
Labor rates are higher.
Yeah.
Land availability is going for challenges in urbanization or alternative crops.
Yeah.
If the alternative crops are profitable, cashew will never get it. Therefore, marketing and innovation and other aspects, we should have a sustainable plan for 25 years. And we are going to be there.
Thank you, sir. And you have mentioned that there is a loss of 100 million USD value due to poor post-harvest technologies or practices in West Africa. So, how can we tackle it, sir?
I made a paper about 10 years ago, and that time I got a calculation of about USD 30 million, and that is an extrapolation. Here I would say that I would advocate resources into this. It is not something that I put in because I just wanted to put a shocking figure. $100 million US loss is not necessarily a loss of profit or a loss in margins. It is something the whole value chain is losing in parts.
Right, sir.
So, what does it mean in terms of loss of value? I can give about 5 or 7 examples. First loss of value is that when the post-harvest treatment is not right at the bushes or at the hands of the trader, then there is some characteristic loss in the kernel.
Yes, sir.
That characteristic loss is irreversible. Suppose it has happened in 30 days in any West African country, and then it travels for 30 or 40 days or 70 days, then the loss is more. But the exporter knows it and the importer knows it, so it is diminishing value. Can you give any reason why a West African country should get $950 or $1,000 when we pay $1,600 for Indonesia?
Right, sir.
Have you analyzed it? It's up to you to analyze it, because we can give you objective figures.
Right.
It is not that we are suppressing Africa. If they give equal to Indonesia, we will have to pay 1,600, but if they make it equal to Indonesia for 100,000 ton, then Indonesia will not be paid 1,600. We will pay both 1,400 or 1,450. So, if 100,000 ton equivalent is diminishing $200, this is like $20 million. But we are also losing another $20 million by lesser productivity in the plants.
Right, sir.
So, when I put wrongly treated material, instead of doing 10 tons per day, my production will come down to 7 tons per day. Is it not a loss for value in the factory?
Right, sir.
That means we cannot go forward. If a better quality in post-harvest terms is given, I can plan a 15 ton per day plant and more efficiency. And what does it mean? Better quality and better presentation, better liking by the consumers, and they will pay us definitely the value.
Correct.
The price is not the issue. They will give us a better value, which means today when they are giving us to $3.45, they are not happy customers. If I give it at $3.60, something better, then their efficiency improves, which means they can sell it for $7 in the supermarkets.
Yes.
So, what is value? If a brand or a particular person who takes this as input, he can improve 10% of his value. In the whole world, it will be 400 million US dollars. Retail value in OECD countries is 90% higher than the FOB price. So, if you go to Marks and Spencer's, you will pay 109 pence or 110 pence for a 100 gram pack. But so many processes go that when the customer picks it up, they enjoy it. Suppose we are not having the right raw material, how can we convince for another 100 gram or a 200 gram pack to be kept it? So, it is up to us that we give value, and without good raw material, I can't assure it. If I get 100 tons of X material and in that I have 25 tons of, which you will hear in this conference very, very vividly, all I am saying is that 30 to 40% value recovery is just done by simple treatments, which I advocate is sun drying by the farmer 3 times as the harvest comes. So, if a farmer gets 10 kgs a day or 100 kgs a day, he simply spreads it in the sun, collects it in the evening and puts it back, then the value is automatically given. He will get $100 or $120 more for sure, but he has to do it 100%, and all the farmers have to do it 100%. And who advocates that? Who educates the farmer? It has to be a authority, a government, a scientist, you. If an industrialist say that I am going to cheat him out of 7%, it's not. I will have to do it anyway. This has to be explained.
Yes.
That I am telling you another simple thing. If 5% moisture or 4% moisture is retained in 100,000 ton, 5,000 ton we are paying freight for moisture. I would gladly pay 7% more in origin, but that doesn't reach the farmer because the trader has to do it. But if the 100% of the farmers do it, the value is recovered not just on the drying, but the kernel quality will be better. There is less deterioration, and that is where cashew is to be understood well, that the byproducts or the degraded cashews that come in are high from West African origins because of poor harvesting. So, we are taking a value of $8 per kg and giving it away for 10 cents a kg, because after deterioration it is 10 cents a kg. I am selling degraded cashews at 10 rupees or 15 rupees a kilo, which is suppose I get 100 grams, it would have meant 300 grams of good kernels. If it is of plant origin, which means no matter what you do, it is degraded, I have no issue with that. It is natural in agricultural produce, some 1%, 2% bad is there.
Yes.
But if agriculturist does not dry it, and then the trader also does not dry it, and it comes to my factory and then I can't dry it, it will sit there for 3 months without drying, then that loss is irreversible.
Right.
So, the calculation is $100 million US. But if everything is done well, we may gain $200 million, but it's not for me alone.
Yes, sir.
It's for cashew. That is why we have to think for cashew, that the standards we develop, the regulation of the trade, that is self-discipline, must make this happen. But the analogy is already there. In India, we pay $1,600 or $1,700 to the farmer, but the post-harvest treatment is done immediately. But in West Africa, if it is not done, and the transit time is 40 days, then it sits in Colombo or Singapore, it gets deteriorated further, for which I have neither insurance nor I have a remedy. It is gone forever. So, this is my message, that all of Africa, especially West Africa, please take care of the post harvest and see that in 2 years time you will get transformed. And whether it is manufactured in Africa or anywhere else in the world, treat raw cashews thoroughly. Make it a thorough practice like in other agricultural produce. So, this is my message.
I am sure, sir, the message will definitely reach the people and they will change.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.